Well, Indians will not accept it, but it is a massive setback because essentially the Court of Arbitration, first back in June 25 and now in May 2026, has said precisely the point that Pakistan has been trying to make with India. And I think in the latest supplementary decision, the key sentence is that these restrictions are not formalities that could just be sort of waved away and say that, oh, we'll deal with them later. So the court sentence that they apply at the planning and design stage and cannot be satisfied merely by later assurance of operational restraint. So I think this is a very key sentence which will hit directly at India's contention that that they are a reasonable country and they would abide by it while they are operating it. Well, Pakistan's view, and correctly so after the war last year, is and always has been that we must judge India not on its statements, but on its capability to damage Pakistan. So this judgment, which specifically on pondage, which is a technical term essentially for how much water that you can collect at one place, makes I think, a very fine and precise point, because we too often get bogged down in details of how high the gates are going to be and how high the dam can be and how much it works, and all these technical, although very valid debates upon how much the rivers are bringing in that need to be flushed out. But the truth is that the correct issue has finally been laid out clearly, that the restrictions on India, on how it gathers and releases those waters, that these are real obligations under the treaty and cannot be just walked away or wished away by saying that, we'll behave decently whenever we wish to. So I think it's another landmark decision in Pakistan's favor. We also received earlier landmark decisions in our favor in the Kishanganga decision. And now it's India's choice whether it wants to continue to act as a country scorned, or it wants to actually participate in what is the real debate about how responsible we are in using water. And we do have a shared heritage with India in terms of the upper Indus Basin, and whether that can be used as a pretext for cooperation, or India is going to continue its warmongering and anti-Pakistan and anti-Islam Hindutva path that it has taken in recent decades. Because, we'll go into history a little bit. India was actually offered us 4 rivers before the treaty was finalized. And in the end, the treaty was finalized on 3+3. But I think for many people, I think it's very important to understand that the usual upper riparian and lower riparian dynamic that operates in rivers that move from one territory to the other does not apply in this case. Because in this case, the division wasn't upper riparian, lower riparian. The division was actually east-west, and the whole rivers were given to India. So if India wants to claim a larger share of the western rivers, which are Pakistan's under the treaty, then Pakistan will be fully within its rights to begin to claim, as we should, I think, its right on the lower riparian rivers in Ravi, Sutlej, and Beas. Our contention for those 3 eastern rivers is that we need minimum environmentally sound flows to keep the ecosystem at least tenable and livable. We don't need it for irrigation, but at least minimum flows should be there in these 3 rivers to maintain the ecosystem and the river life that exists, plant life and animal life that exists. Because if India opens this door, which has been trying to open for a long time, is essentially trying to assert the upper riparian rights, which in this treaty doesn't have. No, it does not. I think it's and I have written on it that Indians' excuse to get out of this treaty is their totally shoddy and shabby case against Pakistan on terrorism. That's the one specter they always raise when they run out of arguments. They say Pakistan is a terrorist state, and therefore we are not bound by any agreement that we have done with Pakistan. When in fact they are bound, and for many decades it was Indian experts who used to cite the Indus Waters Treaty as an example of a good treaty that had persisted through three wars and multiple tensions in its 65 or now 66 years. But the truth is now that India feels that because of, well, maybe it felt before Marika-e-Haq punctured their pretentious balloon of being a rising superpower, and all their superpower rhetoric was undermined by their defeat in Marika-e-Haq. But before that, and that was the hubris that made them put the treaty in abeyance, which I'm certain that they are reviewing now, because they have not received any sympathy from any country in putting the treaty in abeyance. But they will continue to make their case of conflating terrorism with Pakistan and using terrorism, actually, not any water-related issue, but terrorism as an excuse to put this treaty in abeyance or to just walk away from it. And I think the challenge for Pakistan and for the international community is to ensure that at least this model treaty, which has held for nearly 7 decades, is not held in abeyance, but held up in esteem as a continuing model for two countries who might not see eye to eye on many things, but at least can agree to use water responsibly. I want to repeat the point that this treaty is unique, that it doesn't do upper riparian, lower riparian division. It just divided the rivers, east and west. And therefore, the rights of each, the east side, which India never talks about, that it has absolute rights over those three rivers, which sort of it has, completely digested. But the fact is that it wants all of the attention focused on the western rivers, because now it is greedily eyeing the water of the Indus and saying that, there's so much water is flowing to Pakistan, and their weaponization and use of water as a weapon of aggression is the world has condemned. And in fact, Pakistan should be making greater diplomatic efforts, propaganda efforts, to portray India as the aggressor, as the breaker of international law, and a country that is simply not a responsible state in the international system. Yes, Pakistan is still vulnerable. I mean, that is the bottom line. And that is why all the more reason that Pakistan should be raising its voice. If you ask me, Pakistan should be raising hue and cry internationally, in international law circles, in multilateral arena. Pakistan has been making certain efforts in making occasional statements by the Foreign Office on the subject. The Deputy Prime Minister, periodically makes a statement. Since Pakistan is currently a member, an elected member of the UN Security Council, we have been raising our voice there. I think a more vigorous effort is needed in order to begin to pressurize India to get back into the treaty. And there are certain points on which Pakistan can offer some leeway if India is amenable to come back to the treaty and begin not only negotiations, but also data transfers and the early flood warnings that are mandated under the treaty. Well, the hazards are still there, but India has been sort of in its own sneaky way, not sharing data, but giving us warnings through the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi. So it does share some information. There's not information blockout, but it wants to stay away from the Indus Waters Treaty and wants to use it as as a diplomatic nicety that they are observing. But it doesn't solve Pakistan's problem. So Pakistan will have to create other mechanisms in this technological age to be able to monitor even through satellites or other drones. So we could be able to see, if not far in advance, but at least a 24-hour warning before floods hit us in Punjab. And since I am talking to you from Gujranwala, the Chenab River is not so far away. So we always are wary of floods hitting us from India because Chenab is usually the first one to flood. You see, there is no cure for bad faith. The idea was that these were two different routes, and both countries would agree either to go to the Court of Arbitration and to neutral expert. India, so there is a divide also. India feels that it can better manipulate an individual, which is the neutral observer, and Pakistan feels that its case is better. Pakistan always sort of on a weaker side in recent decades internationally, feel that there is a better chance when there are more judges at the Court of Arbitration. So India has always preferred the neutral expert. We have always preferred the Court of Arbitration. And this time, these parallel proceedings that you refer to are in fact a signal of frustration by the World Bank that the two countries cannot agree on anything, and therefore we can run both the Court of Arbitration and the neutral expert. So India can claim some procedural wins, but I would return to from where I began, that in the very clear language that came out just 3 days ago from the Court of Arbitration in the supplementary decision, is that certain things cannot be left on faith of the opposing party's practice. These are real restrictions. These protect real rights of Pakistan's people. And as I've also written in another piece, the rights of a civilization to exist on the Indus. Yes, there are. But I think the past year, which was a miraculous year for Pakistan's diplomacy, in which more effort is now due. And I will again use the word hue and cry in international forums, not just the UN, wherever Pakistan is present in international environmental organizations, quality of life organizations, other water-related organizations. Pakistan should really be raising a hue and cry because there is a real danger of war here, which very few people like to talk about, but I do want to bring to notice to your viewers, is that we are having this cold peace in South Asia, which hangs from a thread of very random Indian reasonableness. Because Prime Minister Modi, in his speech immediately after Marka-e-Haq last year, gave these 4 criteria which essentially unmoved India's actions from any sort of evidence. And they say, anywhere, if there is an incident, we will attack Pakistan. And in turn, Pakistan's National Security Committee, even before the war, said that any Indian effort to divert or stop water will be deemed an act of war. So these are serious issues. And I think this war threat or what we saw in Marka-e-Haq, a nuclear war over water, is a real prospect. However small its probability, but it's a real prospect, and this prospect should alarm not only the region, but the whole world, because the upper Indus Basin, which contains the glaciers that are now very melting rapidly, is the third pole of the world. It has the largest concentration of ice after the two poles. And if the war happens in that region, the catastrophe is beyond anyone's imagination. No, it hardens positions, and India will insist that it has the right, and it will insist that these judgments by the court are have less operational value. So it is Pakistan's responsibility now, as the phrase goes, to take the June 25 judgment and now the May 26 judgment, and run away with it across the world and say that, this is something wrong is happening here and there are real prospects of war. And therefore, India, if it still has pretensions to be a superpower or to be a country of consequence, has to abide by international law. The challenge is bigger now that international law, whose tatters we saw in Gaza recently, and then in Iran, in the Iran war, is not something that is on the radar of many countries, but that does not lessen Pakistan's responsibility to advocate it to the fullest extent possible, using all means of social media and other media that are at Pakistan's disposal. And I would also contend it's worth spending some resources on the subject in order to forestall a calamity that we can see approaching us in 2 to 3 years. There is a case for updating the treaty, but a treaty can only be updated if two sides are abiding by it. So therefore, the only case for updating the treaty is not to change the basic dynamic. There is a Pakistan's case, as I said, of minimum ecological flows in the three eastern rivers in order to maintain the ecology of those rivers. There's the Indian case of saying that, the dam design has changed from 60s. So maybe there is some technical modification that could be made to one of the appendixes that was also referred in the decision that came 3 days ago. But the first issue, I think, and where most of our communication breaks down, is that India comes back to the treaty and both countries begin to work together in good faith. This good faith is something that has sorely been missing since BJP took power in 2014. And that is the challenge we have, is not only to bring India back to the treaty, but also to demonstrate to the world and to India that we owe to our future generations the responsibility of a responsible stewardship of these resources, like the glaciers that we share and the water that flows through our countries, is that it's something, it is, if I may be so bold to say, a civilizational responsibility for us to bequeath this water and these glaciers to our future generations. Recently there's been some debate about where Indus civilization resides. All research says 80% is in Pakistani territory. So we also have a responsibility on our side that whatever water we do have is to use it responsibly for our future generations. Well, the limits are something that the world would not like to test. We are not the only two countries which have a water apportionment treaty. There have been recently a long negotiation between Spain and Portugal on rivers. There are treaties in South America between different countries, treaties in Europe, which has actually worked quite well on the Danube River, on how it is apportioned. But there's also a treaty between Finland and Russia on apportionment of these rivers. And one of the reasons that, one of the sort of arguments that Pakistan has against India is that if Indus Waters Treaty is held in abeyance indefinitely or is broken, then the whole edifice of international law around water apportionment treaties breaks down. And no one wants to see that. And therefore, it is in the world's interest also to begin to pressurize India to get back into the Indus Waters Treaty. And Pakistan, I believe, can be a reasonable interlocutor on certain technical issues that India wants to raise. But the apportionment of the water will stay as it is. That is the foundation of the treaty. Well, the only project that they actually announced in the last year was again over the Chenab River, which has sort of relatively easier geography as it flows through the Indian occupied Kashmir. Jhelum and particularly the Indus are flowing through very forbidding territory, and therefore very difficult to build tunnels. These tunnels are like a decade-long projects, which actually they haven't announced. They threatened but haven't announced. But again, the basis of the dialogue is that Pakistan's effort, which is legitimate, is to stop India from having the capability to control water flows in the three western rivers. And that capacity, that is why we have all these technical safeguards, which the court has upheld and said that these safeguards are not trivial matters. They have to be part of the design of any dams or reservoirs that India builds. So in the future, I think Pakistan, again, will have the responsibility to continue fighting that case in which we assert our rights, we assert our citizens' rights, and also forcefully counter this conflation of terrorism and water.